Hey, welcome back to the next chapter on B9. This is going to be chapter 5, Damaged Goods Part 2. The reason why I wanted to do a part 2 was the video went live yesterday, and I got a little bit of a time to reflect on kind of some of the things that I said and what I intended to say. And in that video, I said maybe I shouldn't post it because I was kind of upset at the time. And, maybe I shouldn't have, but I'm one of those people that I stand behind what I did. And I said what I said and I meant what I said. So I see no problem with that video being live. Um, but I do want to just take a couple minutes to kind of build on what I intended to talk about with damaged goods. And I kind of jumped all over the place in that last video. Again, like I said, I was upset, and maybe it was just a little bit of pettiness. I don't know, but like most people, I'm very protective of my kids, and even though what happened might have been something small, because of all the things that have happened over the years or the things that have been going on for the last couple months, it was a bigger deal to me than it might appear to you. And so that's kind of what I mean by damaged goods. You got to see some of the damage that's been done to me, um, and some of the damage that's been done to my kids in that last video. And so I just kind of want to build on that in a more calm and diffused manner, I guess. So when I was doing that, I was speaking from the heart. I was using my emotion. And I'm usually a very rational thinker. I take my time and I think about what I'm going to say or what I do, until the heat of the moment. Like, if you get me fired up, then everything that I say or do is going to be strictly emotion. It's going to be passion. It's going to come from the heart. Um, and the brain necessarily isn't going to be too involved in it. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Um, I'm a huge believer in saying what you mean, being honest to your feelings, things like that, because I did hold back a lot of feelings for a long time. I had to suppress how I felt. And then on top of that, my feelings were being suppressed. There was no validation of how I felt when I would come home from work and talk about, you know, how my day was going, or something that upset me, or something that was good. Those things went unheard and were immediately cut off with, well, I want this or I want that. So it became like, okay, there's no point in me even talking, because as soon as I say something, she's not listening, she's just thinking about what she wants to say to me. And I mean, anybody knows it's really hard to listen when you're already thinking of what you want to say. So she never took the time to listen to me and to validate what I was feeling or saying, because she was too busy focusing on what she was about to ask me for. And so I suppressed feelings, and I didn't just do that with her. I mean, I think that's been my natural tendency, was to hold in my feelings for a long time. I think in one of the videos I talked about, there was a opportunity for me to talk to my support system about things, but I didn't always speak about everything because I worried that I was going to look different or present myself different to my friends and family, and I didn't want them to look down on me because of the things that I was dealing with or how I was feeling. And that wasn't a smart thing for me to do, because it left me with a lot of things bottled up that maybe they could have given me advice on. So those are the examples of what I meant by damaged goods and where I'm at, um, mentally. And I know that last video might have made it seem like I'm a little bit off my shit and maybe a little bit crazy. But again, I was pissed off. And I wasn't pissed off for me. I was pissed off for my kids because they're trying. They want to have a relationship, but it's not been easy the last few months. And they're struggling with the idea of their mom being absent from their lives, even though this isn't the first time. But they're older now, and so they're going to remember this. And I talked about my youngest daughter, who's kind of like, she's gone cold. She's already trying to wash her hands of the situation, and she's 10 years old. And to me, that's a concern, because at 10 years old, a child shouldn't be to the point where they don't want to interact with you. And when you've done so much or put them through so much that a child that young is feeling that way, that's a problem. And that concerns me, because now I'm looking at this child as, she's damaged goods. How do I fix this? And I did touch on that a little bit in the last video, but I have to do a lot of work now to clear up her thought process, her train of thought on how she wants to interact with her mom. Because it's not that I don't want them to have a relationship with their mom. I'm the one that's been trying to encourage them to have the relationship with their mom. I've been trying to get her to understand what she needs to do in order to nourish that relationship with them, but she fails to do it. So I've got to play cleanup. You've heard me say that before. I've got to figure out a way to sit down with my daughter and get her to understand that, yeah, she's got a right to feel the way that she feels. I understand how she feels. I understand her frustration. But I also want her to understand that she's only got one mom. Right, wrong, or indifferent, she's only got this one person that she can call mom. And so she has to learn to either forgive her, accept the situation, or just move past it and talk to her about her feelings at some other point. And mom's not going to do this. Mom's not going to let her just skate along without talking about it. So I've got to prepare her. I've got to train her and teach her ways to cope with this and ways to deal with this. And maybe counseling for her is the next step for me. And it's something that I've actually been considering for the last few months, if I need to do this with her, because she is shutting down. And I don't want her to act like me, which, like I said before, she already does, but I don't want her to bottle up her feelings the way I have over the years, because it's not healthy. And she's got a really big heart. She's a really sweet kid. She's very loving. But right now, she's going through this phase where she's just cold. Heart's cold as ice. And it's not in her nature. So I've got to figure out how to fix that. My other daughter, she's hurting. She wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's the one that's really been trying to push for the relationship to work with her mom. So, I've been able to try to guide her and coach her along the way, expect this, expect that. And, she's been able to handle the situation in stride, and she's done a good job of relaying her feelings and things like that. And I think I told you she's kind of, sent some messages to her mom and opened up about how she feels. And I'm proud of her for that. But after the events of Thursday, she's kind of in a position where she doesn't even know she wants to talk to her right now. So I don't see her trying to reach out to her mom anytime soon. And, that's, I don't want to force her, but I don't want her to not try either. And so it's kind of a fine line that we're walking here. Like, how do I get her to understand that, yeah, she's upset right now, and yes, she has the right to feel upset, but you have to understand that your mom is a little bit different, and you got to accept that and try to figure out a way to work on that relationship and maintain that relationship, because mom's not going to do it. And that's a lot to put on a 14-year-old kid. You've got to be the one to try to build that relationship. And because I can only do so much, because her mom's not going to listen to me. She pretends like she's going to hear me out, and she agrees with me when I say stuff, but it's really just her trying to get me to shut up because she doesn't want to hear what I have to say. And that's fine. That's all going to fall on her. She'll have to be the one to deal with that. But the kids, on the other hand, they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to be worried about this, that, or whatever when it comes to their mom. It should just be a natural, simple relationship. You would think so, but it's not. And so I went on that rant the other night about damaged goods, and it's dawning on me they're already damaged. But is that damage reversible? Can I fix this? Can I help them? Can I show them a better way? Um, and then the question is, am I capable of doing that? Because I've been damaged. And then there's the question of, how is their mom going to receive any of this? Like, is she going to try to reach out to these kids? Because I can tell you, it's been 2 days since they went to dinner with her, and she has not reached out to them at all. Now, she did send me a text thanking me for bringing them to the dinner and thanking me for the gift card that they got her. But she sent it the next morning while I was still fuming. And so I believe in that old saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I have yet to respond to her. Because, again, if I say what I want to say to her, if I point out her mistakes to her, it'll start an argument between me and her, and I can deal with that. I could care less about that. But it's once one of us ends that conversation, and it's usually me saying I'm done with the conversation, and then I just stop responding. Once I end that conversation, or she gets tired of me telling her what she did wrong, and she tries to end the conversation, and yes, I have no problem telling her she did something wrong when it comes to my kids. Now, whatever else she does in her life, if I think she's doing something wrong, I let her do it. I don't try to correct her. I don't say shit. That's her business. But when it comes to the kids, it's my business. So there are times where she tries to end the conversation. But usually what happens in a situation where I'm talking to her about something that involved the kids that I wasn't directly involved in, and then it's obvious that the kids are the ones talking to me about this, her next step is to attack the kids. And it's usually my oldest daughter. Why'd you tell your dad this? He wasn't there. It was just us. You shouldn't have been talking to him about this. And then she tries to literally punish the child for talking to me. And I've encouraged them to be able to come and sit and talk to me whenever they need me. They can talk to me about whatever they want. Sometimes there's things that they tell me that as a dad makes me a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe I don't want to hear it, because maybe this is something that you should be able to talk to your mom about, but they can't do that, so they have no choice but to talk to me about it. So I've encouraged them to be open with me, to be honest with me, and to talk to me about their feelings, and they do that, and I'm okay with that. But when they do that and then mom is telling them you shouldn't have done that, that's a problem. That's counterproductive to how I want to raise my kids. Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not turn the ringer off on something, and it's going off over there. But I thought I did. Um, yeah, it's counterproductive. It's counter parenting, like we talked about before. So there's a lot of work to be done. Again, I like to be self aware. So this is me reflecting on what I said and how I acted in the last video. And again, I don't regret what I said. Um, it was what I was feeling. But for the few of you that are actually watching this, I wanted to be able to come back and actually talk about what damaged goods are with my brain and not with my heart. Um, so as I've just said all these things, obviously I've talked about how I see the kids being damaged and how I'm damaged, and I've talked about what they should expect from their mom. And so you can see from that the damaged goods pertaining to her. So I mentioned the other night that she's gotten her issues from her mom. So my kid's grandmother. And she's such a strange person. Like, my kids won't even call her grandma. They haven't seen her in a few years at this point, but they won't call her grandma. Even when they were around her, they would just call her mommy's mom, because they don't view her as a grandmother, because she doesn't act like a grandmother. To them, my mom is their grandma. That's the only grandma they know. And so her mom has all these issues where she thinks she's right about everything, and the only way to do things is her way. And she has literally, I mentioned that she thinks she's this great Christian. And in the 15 years since I first met her, I've never seen this woman in a church. I've never heard her recite scripture. I've never seen her with a Bible in her hand, but she's always constantly talking about, well, God said this or God said that. And she'll have these prayer sessions and she starts speaking in tongues, and it's almost like a cult. And when she does these things, she tries to pull her kids in, and some of them will buy into it for a little bit, but then they kind of distance themselves from her. And this woman has 8 kids. And my ex is the 3rd youngest. So listening to them over the years, all 8 of them have talked about different things about it. Their mom, and some of them have a relationship with her now, and some of them don't. I think right now she's probably got a relationship with like maybe 3 of the 8. And my ex doesn't have any relationship with her at all at this point, and so therefore my kids don't. But when you listen to them talk about this woman, there's nothing positive. It's always something negative that has happened in their relationship with their mom. And my ex will talk about how she had a drinking problem when they were younger, or she was always yelling at them, leaving them to take care of themselves, whatever. And she tries to use her job as a status. She's a registered nurse. And so she's always telling you, well, as a registered nurse, I know this, that, or whatever. A good example, nothing to do with her. The night my oldest daughter was born, the nurse told us that only one person could be in the room when the baby was born. And so I'm the father, right? And she's standing there and she looks at me with a straight face, and she was serious. And she goes, well, as a registered nurse, I think I should be in the room with her. And I politely told her, over my dead damn body. It's like, it's my kid. I'm the one that's going to be in the room. There'll be registered nurses here. And she looked at my ex, we were just dating at the time. She was my girlfriend at the time. She looked at her and said, well, it's up to you. And I looked at her, and then so she had to tell her mom, like, he's going to be in here because it's his kid. Now that nurse's shift ended and the doctor came in to deliver the baby and new nurses came in. And so she was able to sneak into the room. So she was in the room for the birth. But that's just an example of her, using her status to try to control situations. And, she'll bring it up with something that's not medically related. We could be talking about a movie and, as a registered nurse, I think this movie is great and the movie's garbage, just stuff like that. But she's not mentally stable. She's a narcissist. And so her daughter, my ex, has taken on a lot of the similar traits. She thinks she's this expert on this, that, or whatever. And again, I've mentioned before that I think she's sociopathic. And one of the things that she'll do is, so let's say I experienced something. I did something or witnessed something, and I go back and I tell her about it. Well, the next thing you know, she's telling that story to someone else as if she was the one that witnessed it or was involved in it. And she would do these things right in front of me, and I'm like, you weren't even there. So she just kind of latches onto stuff. And I mentioned one day that I told her in the video, I told her that she needed to focus on the kids and not focus on me. And the only thing that she took from that conversation was that I said, don't focus on me. And she responded, nobody's focused on you. What's wrong with you? That's all she took from that. So that's an example of her mental state and how she's damaged. But she latches on to certain things. I think in one of the very first videos, I mentioned that I did some research to make sure that I understood what a narcissist was. And during a conversation, I asked her if she had ever been diagnosed with narcissism or talked to her psychiatrist about narcissism. And she responded with, I'm not a narcissist, you're a narcissist. And that was 5 years ago. So for the last 5 years, one of the key words in her vocabulary is now narcissist. And she does not understand what the word means. And so she uses it out of context. And so it's just one of those examples of the damage that she has. The difference between her and I is that I try to recognize my issues as, again, self-awareness. I can go back and reflect on myself and say, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have said that. I was in the wrong here or I was in the wrong there. But she's incapable of doing that. So again, another example of a narcissist. We talked about that in that chapter. I think that was chapter 3. She can't take responsibility for her own behavior. She's incapable of doing that. And there's also the concern about her ability to parent because of these things. When the kids are with her, they don't feel like she's the parent. And she'll complain, I'm the parent. You need to make sure that they listen to me. Well, if they're there and they don't feel like there's a parent there, they tend to parent themselves. Like my oldest will take responsibility for her sister. She'll start looking out for her sister. She gets up to feed her sister, to take care of her little sister. She goes to protect her little sister. And that's what kind of triggered the first interaction I had with this so-called boyfriend, was because he was saying things in front of my youngest daughter, and her sister felt like she needed to tell him to stop because she didn't want her little sister to hear the things that he was saying. Now, I've taught them not to talk back to adults and to be respectful of adults. And so I've had a conversation with her about that. But at the same time, she wasn't wrong, because he shouldn't have been saying those things in front of my kids. And their mom was sitting there letting it happen, and she wasn't stopping it. So my oldest daughter took it upon herself to address the issue. So should she have done it? No. But was she wrong? No. And these two adults that are there, he had no business saying this stuff in front of them. So he's wrong. And their mom is sitting there allowing this to happen, and she's not saying anything. So she's wrong. And so it's just like, what do you do in these situations when um, somebody is so damaged that they can't recognize that they're the problem in the situation? She's not parenting. She's getting upset because or her oldest daughter is taking on these responsibilities. And it bothers me because I want my kids to be able to stay kids. I don't want them to grow up too fast. But the reality of it is that my oldest is growing up faster than she needs to. And some of that falls on me because she does help out around the house here. It's just the three of us. And she worries about putting too much on me. So she'll help cook dinner sometimes, or she'll make her and her sister lunch or breakfast or something if I have to work. And that's about the extent of it. I have to tell her to clean her room, or I kind of dropped a hint yesterday. They didn't have school because of the Labor Day weekend. I dropped a hint, hey, maybe you should do the dishes, and that just went in one ear and out the other ear. So, um, but she does try to help, and she's shown a lot of growth as in responsibility. And I mentioned that she's taken on these leadership roles at school, so she's growing, and she's developing into this very responsible and intelligent young girl, and or young woman, excuse me. And I'm proud of her for that. But at the same time, I still want her to be a kid. I want her to enjoy these last few years she had as a child. She's 14, she'll be 15, and well, she'll be 15 in 6 months. So I need her to enjoy this time. But when mom's involved, it's hard for her to do that. Now, when she's home with me, I'm kind of a silly dad. I try to be the fun dad. I mentioned before, we'll do TikToks together and things like that where I'm doing something silly. And um, I try to be that fun dad that she can come to and talk to and enjoy being around. And, they know I can be serious when I have to. Um, but for the most part, we try to have fun every day. Things are about laughing. Life's too short to be serious all the time. And I have to be serious in certain situations at work or at home, but I'm also very playful. And so they get to experience childhood when they're home, and they don't get to do that when they go to visit their mom. So, and because things are so chaotic for them when they go there, it's almost like a punishment for them to spend time with their mom. And I think over the last couple months, it's actually been a relief for them not going around. And at some point, I'm going to allow them to go there, but I need to make sure first that this guy really isn't there anymore, which I don't believe her when she says that they're broken up. I believe he is still very much in the picture. Um, and I haven't received any pushback from her as far as her parenting time. So that to me reinforces that what I'm feeling and what I believe is right. She before I forget, I kind of got off topic at some point. I mentioned that she will repeat things as if she experienced it. Um, and I kind of explained how, it's a sociopathic tendency or whatever. But the reason why I brought that up, and then I lost my train of thought, was that um, so last week or the week before, she sent me a message. Um, and this was right after she had finally reached out to the kids for the first time in like 2 weeks or something. And, at that point, I felt like, okay, now I should say something. So I did respond to that message. And this is the message that I mentioned before, where I told her she should focus on them and not on me. I recognize that she had been putting in the effort to reach out to them. And I told her that she needed to give it some time before we resumed any kind of parenting time. Now, this is before I started to put together that the boyfriend was still in the picture. But, I wanted her to understand, look, they've been through a lot, and you need to work on your communication with them and rebuilding that relationship. So when she texted them this week about going to dinner, and when she went to dinner with them, I forget what order this part actually came in, but her message to them, what she told them, is that she understood that they were upset, and she wanted to take her time to make sure that they felt comfortable and rebuild the relationship. So she literally took what I said and repeated it to the kids to make them feel as if it was her own thought. And in this situation, that doesn't bother me, I guess. It doesn't upset me that she did that, because whatever it takes for her to make things right with them, or for them to feel comfortable, I'm okay with. But I just thought that was something kind of to the point of what I was originally thinking. So I wanted to make sure I brought that up. So we've talked about her damaged goods. We've talked about the kids' damaged goods. And it's really just a state of mind, how everybody is feeling. We've all got some kind of baggage that we carry with us that has hurt us over the years, or recent pain that we felt. And that's what I meant by damaged goods. And I think that last video is a great testament to the fact that I am damaged. I have damaged goods. Um, so, what do you do to work on that? How do you get better? How do you fix the damage? So, for me, it's been finding things that I enjoy again, because I, for years, haven't had anything, any hobby or anything that I've been focused on. So, like I mentioned, I do the TikToks with my daughter. Um, Over the last year or so, I've kind of gotten into being a sneakerhead with with my daughter and my nephew and my brother-in-law. So that's kind of something that we all bond over. My counselor has been big on finding something that's for me. So this podcast was something that I felt was for me. So that's something that I'm doing to try to repair the damage. Talking, getting this out there, and hoping that I can help somebody else. Again, I have a lot of experience dealing with a narcissist, dealing with an addict, dealing with somebody that can't co-parent and is counter-parenting. Um, I've experienced a lot, and I wish these videos were reaching more people, and hopefully at some point they will. So if you are watching, please share, especially if you know somebody who's in a situation like me, somebody who's um, experienced life with a narcissist, or who is taking on the role of both parents, or is even just a single parent with full custody. I'm going to continue to make these videos, even if they only get a couple views. I'm going to continue to do it. I've been encouraged to do it by my kids, by my siblings, my sister, and my brother. They've encouraged me to keep doing them, and so I'm going to. My brother Steve said yesterday, he's like, you know, you're doing a good job, and this shit has to be therapeutic, and in a way, it is therapeutic because I'm talking to you about what I'm actually feeling, and I'm hoping that what I'm saying is reaching somebody and that it's helping somebody. So it is therapeutic for me. Um, there's a healing process that goes along with being damaged. Um, and hopefully, for some people, it's a short term thing. Um, whenever there's kind of a divorce or a separation or a breakup, people need time to heal. And I think I healed pretty quickly from the divorce. The day I filed for the divorce, there was a little bit of emotion, and after that, I was content. I was good with my decision. And the day that the divorce was finalized, there was a sense of relief. And I remember walking out of the courthouse, and I got into my car. Well, it wasn't my car; it was a car I was using at the time, but because she still had my truck. But I was, I sat there and I cried, and it was one of these things. Like, it was tears of joy because it was finally over, and then there was sadness because it was over. And I think I said that in a video before too. Is that, you know sometimes you want things to work out, and you hope that you can make it work, and then you realize that you can't. And that's where I tried to make it work for a long time, and I was unable to do so. And so I felt the relief that I didn't have to bear that burden anymore. And then there was a sadness because I felt like I failed. But that didn't last long, because a couple days later I threw a divorce party. Um, so the part that has been hard for me to get over is the damage that was done to me mentally throughout the marriage and throughout the relationship, because we were together for 5 years, and then we got married, and we were married for another 5 years. Well, technically we were married for 6 years, but um, most of that last year, we were separated. So it's just kind of one of those things where um, I was over the relationship, but that 10 years worth of damage had been done. And so that's the part where I've struggled to heal from. I've not been able to get it all figured out yet. And there's some things that, yeah, I can move on and get past pretty easily. There was a lot that I was able to let go and just be done with it. But then, like I said, I got into a relationship at one point, and things were going good. And then all of a sudden I started to recognize that I've got these problems, and that there was things that I hadn't let go of, and things that I needed to work on. And even now, there's still things that I need to fix, because again, I'm not the same person that I used to be. She changed me over the course of those 10 years by the mental attacks and the mental abuse. So it's the first of the month, so there's a siren going off. But all that stuff kind of, it built up inside, and I've got to learn how to manage that. Part of that for me, again, was going to counseling. And again, I don't miss her. I don't miss the marriage. Maybe sometimes miss companionship. And I struggle with the idea of going out and dating, which we've talked about a couple times already, so I'm not going to get into that. But building on what I've done, the positive things that I've done are going to be part of the healing process for me. You know, I went back to school, and the goal was to get my bachelor's degree. Well, I ended up getting an associate's in liberal arts. And then 6 months later, I finished my bachelor's in business administration. So that was something that was good for me. That kept me motivated and focused. Um, and like I said previously, I don't even know if I actually wanted to go back to school, but I did it because it was something to distract me from everything else. And at the end of the day, I accomplished something that I had been trying to do for a very long time. And I'm proud of myself for doing it. And it was great because my kids got to experience it too. So they got to see the joy that I had from going back to school and completing my degree, because I've been pushing education. Like, I want you guys to go to college. I want you to graduate and have a happy life. I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I had. And the dumb part is I was originally only a couple credits short of completing my associates 20 years ago. So I really should have finished school, and I didn't, but I'm done now. So that's something that I did for me. I completed that, and I felt good about it. And then once that was done, though, it was like, okay, now what do I do? So I've got to find something else to occupy my time, something else to build on. And so, it can be anything that gets your mind straight, that brings you joy and satisfaction. Like recently, I painted my bathroom. Um, and that might not seem like a big deal, but for me it was. It's because for years I looked at that bathroom and I'm like, okay, it's a nice bathroom, I'm just going to leave it alone. But it wasn't what I wanted. The color wasn't what I wanted. And so I painted the bathroom. I painted my cabinets, and then I painted the walls. And the walls aren't the exact shade that I wanted, but I'm still content with it. I'm okay with it because I did it, and it was something that I had wanted to do. And then the podcast, this wasn't what my original thought was. My original thought was to write a book, but I'm not that patient. So this was good for me to be able to come up with this. And there's a lot of people that kind of encouraged it. My daughter encouraged it. My sister-in-law Callie, she inadvertently encouraged it by telling me that she enjoyed watching a work-related podcast that I was a part of. And then when I brought it up to my sister, she encouraged it. So it's like, okay, let's try it. So I invest a little bit into some equipment, and here we are. And I feel good about this. Again, I wish we would get more subscribers. So please share these videos. And I'm going to keep doing it because that helps me to heal from my damage. And then again, I've got my girls and their damage. How do I help them? And so it really comes down to, I've got to be supportive. I've got to validate their feelings. I've got to be encouraging, and I've got to be present. I need to make sure that I'm there for them when they need me, and that I'm listening, and that I'm showing them affection, and just really doing the things that I feel like I'm already doing. Being that silly dad that they can come to and talk to and joke around with and have fun with, and then being that disciplinary when I need to, the authoritarian. Which I don't have to go that route very often with my kids. For the most part, they listen, so I'm good there. But each one of them needs something different right now from me, and so it's just a matter of me sitting down with them and taking my time and finding out, okay, this one needs this from me, and this one needs that from me, and then building on that, because it's going to take them some time. I mean, we're talking about the effects of somebody, their mother, the effects of their mothers having on them in a situation where they both feel like giving up on the relationship. And there's a part of me, I'm not gonna lie, there's a part of me that is okay with that. But then the other part of me tells me that if I let them give up, they're gonna regret that later on. Now, we're already in a situation where their mom is doing things and making decisions that she's not going to understand that she's doing, and she's not going to realize that she's going to regret later on. She's got it in her mind that I'm doing things that I'm going to regret when it comes to the kids. And maybe I am, and I just don't know it. But as far as I can tell, I'm doing a pretty good damn job. So they don't have any resentment towards me at the moment. That they get mad at me sometimes, and that's fine. They can get mad at me. I can handle that. But they're starting to resent her. And that's where she's going to look back at her life and she's going to regret it. She's going to look back at her life at some point and she's going to regret the things that she's done to me. Maybe. But I do feel she's going to reach a point where she regrets her relationship with her kids. But I don't want them to feel like they should regret the relationship with their mom. So I'm going to continue to try to encourage them to build on that and to give her an opportunity and try. Because the damaged goods can be fixed with time and effort. And if they get the attention that they need, if they get the compassion that they need, if they get the love that they need, and they get the understanding that they need, then maybe I can fix their problems before it's too late. And they can still turn out to be those strong, beautiful, intelligent women that can conquer the world. Because that's my goal for them. If I can make sure that they accomplish that, then when I die, I'll be proud. And I'll have lived the life that I wanted to live. I'll have lived that dream that I've had since I was a young kid of being a father. Now, yeah, the dream originally was to have a full family. And I tried to make that work, and I did everything I could to make that happen. But now I understand that this wasn't up to me. It went the way it was supposed to go. I got what I was supposed to get in two great kids because that was what God wanted for me. And I'm doing the job that I've wanted to do, and I'm trying to do it to the best of my ability. And that was part of the plan. And I didn't realize it. I didn't know that this is what he wanted from me. You know, I am a religious person. I'm not the perfect Christian. I think that we can always be better. And I try to do better. But I do strongly believe in God, and I strongly believe in God's plan. And I believe that even though I maybe strayed away from what I was supposed to be doing at some points in my life and made bad decisions in my life, I think that I was supposed to do those things to get me to where I need to be. And even now, where I know I'm not walking the path that I should be walking or in the direction that I should be walking, I recognize my mistakes, and I know that I'm not a perfect Christian, and I know that, um, this sin or that sin, and I know that I can be forgiven for my sins. And so I have to believe that these things that are happening are part of the plan. The things that I've gone through have been part of the plan, because God won't put anything on you that you can't handle. He tests us, and he brings you to a point where you have to humble yourself. And maybe that's what I've been dealing with. Maybe God was showing me, hey, you can handle this. You can handle being a single father. You can handle raising two girls. You're strong enough to do this. I built you to do this, and it's time for you to do it. And that's a thought that I'm going to hold on to. And I feel like maybe right now he's talking to me, because I had no intention of getting into religion in this podcast. But it's coming to me, and I'm going to say it. Because if I'm going to be a vessel or a tool for anybody, it's got to be for God. I can't do it for someone else. I can't do it for my ex. I can't be the tool that she wanted to use me for. She wanted to use me as an ATM. And there's a stopgap here. There's a place where I thought I was supposed to be at in my life. I thought these were the things that I was supposed to do in my life. And of all those things that I dreamed about and thought I was going to have, the only thing that's hold true is fatherhood. The only thing that I've been able to accomplish that I'm proud of and able to maintain has been fatherhood. I had my kids. I have two beautiful girls. I always wanted a son, and that wasn't in the cards, but I've got two beautiful girls that I'm extremely proud of, and I think I'm doing a great job of being a dad. I'm a girl dad, and I'm doing a good job of it, and my girls love me, and I love them, and that was part of the plan, and none of the other things panned out, so maybe that was the plan. Maybe that's what I was intended to do. Maybe my goal or my path in life was simply to build the best version of myself through them, so that they can go out and accomplish their goals and their dreams. I don't want to preach to anybody, because I'm not a preacher. Oh, when I was a kid, my aunt used to tell me that I was going to grow up to be a preacher. And I'm still pretty young. Maybe I will be someday. I don't know. Maybe this is my version of preaching, talking to you guys, talking about my life experiences. But I also understand, like I said, I'm not a perfect Christian. I've committed sins. Probably will sin again today or sin tomorrow. But the fact that I have faith in God, that I know that I can be forgiven for my sins, because I've never committed a sin that I can't be forgiven for, and I don't plan to. And I'm a Baptist, so I believe that you can wash away your sins. And maybe it's time for me to be baptized again. But yeah, so, and maybe that's part of the healing process. Maybe I need to start looking to God more. Maybe I need to start focusing on my religion, and maybe that'll help heal me. Maybe I need to get my kids more involved in the church. Maybe that'll help heal them. We talk about faith, and we talk about God, and we talk about Jesus. But I could always talk more. And so maybe that's something that I need to focus on, is educating them on our religion and our faith, and going from there. Maybe they can find some kind of satisfaction and relief and understanding in the Bible or through the church. So, yeah, I kind of got off focus there, but I feel good about what I just said. So I'm going to wrap it up. We've talked about damaged goods. We've talked about how to fix those damages. We've gotten 2 episodes out of 1 chapter. And I feel good about both of them. Kind of see how it went from one end of the spectrum from the other, and went from being angry and cussing and just going off on in this little rant to talking about religion and finding um, comfort in the idea that maybe that's religion is the key to healing. It's kind of cool thing right there. But again, totally two different ends of the spectrum. But we'll take that and we'll run with that. And I'll see you in the next chapter.